Welcome back to the Triple Crown Wargaming Studio, guys, where you join myself, James The Loremaster Lammin, for another episode of 20-0 Tactics, where today I'm going to be taking you through some, what I'm going to call flying defence tactics. That's things you can do to defend your army best against enemy flying units. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, this is not an extensive suite of tactics here. Fly is one of the gold standard special rules in Warhammer 8th edition. It allows maximum manoeuvrability, and it also gives so much additional speed to a unit. So really there's kind of three things we're going to discuss. Now, one of them's pretty obvious. One of them I've actually covered in a video before, so I'm going to sort of just touch on it. And then the second one is, the third one is all about positioning. And that's probably the most important and the one you'll have the most success with in defending against enemy flying units. So we're going to take a quick look down at the tabletop now to explain the first section of this video. And the first section of this video is going to be just really simple. It's going to be based around the idea of target priority. So you can see that I've got Caradrian on his Frostheart Phoenix here, that dreadful flying monster, and next to him is a unit of Swordmasters of Hoeth, and they're coming for my Beastmen here. I've got my Gore, my BSB, I've got my Wizard, and I've got my two units of Ungore. So this first section is all just going to be about target priority. So I'm afraid it's going to be short and sweet and hopefully very concise. So it should be obvious to you, but it might not be. I really hope it is. It really should be. That the biggest threat from the enemy is that monster that's flying. And most of the time, flying monsters will be the biggest threat that you have to face. Okay? I'm going to actually add something very quickly to this because it will help to explain this section even better. And it's this eagle. So we're going to assume the High Elves have also got an eagle rolling up on us. So let's play the target priority game. So which of these units is fastest? Well, both the Eagle and Caradrian are the same speed. They're both movement 10. They're swift strides, so they're averagely charging about 19 inches, which is really large. Very scary. And if they get into this unit of Gore, well, I'm in quite a lot of trouble. I might be able to challenge out because I've got a flying monster there, but certainly after I run out of characters to do that with, they're going to get munched. Now, the Swordmasters are also a threat, but they're much slower, and although they've got lots of attacks, they crucially don't fly, which means that as the turns progress and they start to come in, well, I can block them off, as we've talked about before in the video that I did on redirecting or controlling your opponent. I know they kill one unit, they reform, we do it again, we love to see it. So that's really crucial. So these guys are quite low priority for us. So that leaves us with the two flying units. And it becomes really simple, guys. The top priority should always be the one of those that's likely to do the most damage or be the most difficult. Now, an Eagle, he's got 3 strength 4 attacks. Wonderful. In fact, I'm lying. They've got 2 strength 4 attacks. They've got 3 wounds. And the Frostheart has got 5, because that's Ashtari. Strength 6 attacks. Weapon skill 6. The guy on the back, he's got multiple wounds as well. He's a beast and going to do lots of damage. So it should be really obvious that my Beast Wizard here, with his Amber Spear, should be chucking that bad boy straight at Mr. Caradrian, because I can suck up the charge from this little bird, and these guys, well, they're going to get controlled for quite a while before they even get in. That's it. That's number one. The most basic tactic I can give you is prioritise your targets, and you just do that by looking at what's the fastest, most dangerous thing they're throwing down at me. And it isn't always the same. For example, if we were trying to keep, say, this regiment at the back here alive, well, actually, because it's got my Wizard in it, actually the Eagle becomes a difficult target too. I mean, in this scenario, I'd still have to go for Caradrian first, but I have to think about the Eagle differently. So that might be where I try and sort of draw back a little bit, let him come in, and then go for the counter punch on the Eagle myself, rather than allowing them to do all the charges. But either way, the crucial element to bear in mind is that most of the time, the flying unit will be the biggest priority, and the bigger and scarier that flying unit, that dictates the order in which they should be targeted. So the closer, the bigger, the scarier, that really should be it. I'm not going to wax it anymore, I'm not going to drag it out any longer than that. Target priority, number one tactic against flying things. Number two tactic is another one that I've done an additional video on as well, which actually comes in on the redirect video I just mentioned, and that is double fleeing. So we're just going to change the board around ever so slightly, you can see, and it works a bit like this. So, and this is going to touch in on positioning as well for us too. But here we can see the Frost Heart is going to declare a charge. He's going to say charge these guys, and they're going to elect to, in fact these guys need to be a lot further over. They're going to elect to flee, and so they flee, they run through. Very terrible. Mr. Frostheart, he redirects his charge. He successfully passed his leadership check. And now he decides he's going to charge these guys instead. And they also flee. And then he goes poodling up his failed charge. And then if we've got range, we might be able to march out of his arc of sight. It might not be possible. We might want to counter-charge him ourselves. We might have a character with a potion of strength and saying beat Stickley in there. And we might be thinking, well, I could challenge him out, get good combat res. Whatever we're thinking, the double flee is really powerful. And in fact, if we were to just reshape this scenario ever so slightly and drop these guys out and pop these two guys in the gap again, and this time add our Gorgon, and Mr. Cradrian decides he's going to declare his charge on them and they flee, and then them and they flee, and he ambles up, and all of a sudden my Gorgon's like, bam, counter charge time, baby, and he's in and he's doing his damage. Now, I know Gorgon's not the world's greatest monster, and Cradrian is on pretty much the greatest monster in the game, but that's not the point. The point is, double flee is another tactic that you can use to try to defend against flying units. So, to recap, that's target priority and double flee. Double flee is featured in the redirecting video that we talked about before, so you can see some real slightly more in-depth movements from that. I'm not going to labour it. Now, what I'm going to do is the screen's going to fade to black because I'm going to reset this table and I'm going to show you the kind of final part of this video, which is going to be the best tactics that I can give you, which is all about positioning to fight flyers. Right, so the table's been reset and now we're going to talk about positioning on the battlefield and how this really is your best defence against enemy flyers. Now, there's quite a few different scenarios I'm going to try to show you in this section, and that's because you're not always going to be able to do everyone in every game. So we're going to want to have a few in the locker to go, oh, what could I do here to try and jam this up or cause me my opponent some trouble. So I'm going to get you to look down at the table now, and you'll see we've got Cradrian again. He's a terrifying beast, and you can see my beastmen are arrayed here. And this is just about the worst possible positioning I could put them in, really, the beastmen. I suppose the only real problem would be if Crad was a little bit closer to start with. So the reason this is not very good is because Cradrian's kind of got his run of the muck. Now, if he tries my Bestigor, I've got a good shot at doing him in. Very Essex of me again. I've got a really great chance of killing him with a Bestigor. They're high strength. I might be able to cast some Law of Beast spells on them and things like that that'll up their strength further. So he doesn't really want to do that. I'd love him to do that, but he's not going to because he's not silly. But looking at the Gorgon, well, he might fancy that. 6 wounds is big, but I do have multiple wounds. But looking at this chariot, oh, this is a beauty. This is a beauty. So he's going to declare his charge here. He's going to kill my chariot, and he's probably going to overrun past me. He might come off the board. Now I'm going to mess around and turn around all this, and he's going to pop back on again, and you know get my Gorgon on maybe and try and be really clever, and he's going to come back on and he's going to fly over the top. Or he's going to come back on and he's going to fly over to here so that only the Gorgon can have a go, and it's a big charge. There's so many problems for my beastmen here, and they're all created because I allowed a big flat open frontage, which I'm going to reset very quickly, which presented Cradrian with all of his beautiful, beautiful targets. So what can we do? Well, if we don't want our Gorgon charged, but we do want to defend ourselves, we could decide to put our Gorgon here. And actually, the chariot is another good choice. You could shout in this type of position as well. You might face the other way. Or you might decide to put them both forward because they can pivot because they're individual models. So why is this good? Well, this is good because the thing that you have to bear in mind with flyers is they can charge over things. For example, if my Bestigor were here, it's not so good again because Kratos is like, yeah, that's cool, mate, I'll just charge over. Bang. That's another dead chariot, ladies and gentlemen. You hate to see it. But by having them packed tight, in fact, they could even be further forward than that if they wanted. The gap could be quite a bit bigger. All that matters is that that gap is not the same length or longer than Caradhrian's base. And in fact, that applies to just about anything that flies. Anything that flies. So even if it's an enemy infantry character, pop yourself right back because they've got flying carpet. Get yourself an inch apart. As long as they cannot be placed in the hole, they cannot charge these guys. And if you've got flyers of your own that you could counter charge with, and I haven't got any beastman ones to hand, but I could then put one of them there, and then if they do mess around or change their mind, I might be able to get a counter charge on my own. But this is your number one tactic. Number one, the things you want to protect. Might be a beastman wizard as well you want to protect. I want him in the front row of the unit, step him out behind, pop him there, yeah? They go behind a unit that can handle the creature, that can handle the flying thing. And some armies do this a bit better than others, but something like this Bestigor unit is right up that alley. This is the tactic you can almost always guarantee doing as long as you've got the unit in place. Now I'm going to make another quick switch to show you, again, same thing, but a slightly different idea this time. So I'm going to assume I've got something a bit squishier that maybe doesn't have the best chance this time against Caradhrian. I don't want my archers to get charged. That's a definite no. You'll notice that they're actually thinner as a result than my Eternal Guard at the front there. Again, they're going to get nice and close, so they can't fit in. In fact, they could be further away, but it doesn't matter. Caradhrian can't get in. So if he goes for the charge of my Eternal Guard, they're stubborn, which is crucial. Anything that's stubborn, unbreakable, really good in this role. And they'll hold him there. That gives me time to swift reform, get out of the way. It might give me time to come up with spells or other things that could cause Caradhrian some real problems. Or alternatively, if it's late enough in the game, it might simply give me time to ensure that he doesn't get any more victory points off me. Either way, it's not good for him, it's much better for me. And you can do this regiment to regiment, you can do it with individual characters like we talked about. There is more though, there is more. So the next thing we're going to look at is how you can actually use the battlefield terrain to your advantage as well. So you see here we've got quite a big piece of terrain. So if I'm trying to, say, defend my Bestigor, don't want them to get flanked by the monster because he flies and I can't stop him. I'll get myself tucked up right against this. It's exactly the same tactics really, but now if Caradhrian decides to come in from, I'll tell you what, I'm going to just swap this over. Now if he decides to come in from this angle, I say, well, you know, come round, I can see your unit, and I say, that's true, but you're in my flank. So again, can't be placed. We're back to cannot be placed, cannot make the charge. So we can use battlefield terrain to do this for us as well. Okay? It's another thing that we can do, but it's all the same thing really, if I'm honest. And that thing is, don't leave the space for the monster or the flying thing to land. Now, again, we talked about the double flee earlier. Something that we did in a battle report recently was wasn't using beastmen, it was using lizardmen and warriors of chaos, but it was the same principle. So the beastmen are here. They've just won a glorious victory from a combat here, and they've overrun. They've ended up out here in not a good place, and they're being threatened on the flank here by Caradhrian. That's no good for them. They don't like that. But what we can do here now is we can run them up here, and these guys up here. To apologise, guys, I should have started these a little bit further forward. This is much easier with fast cavalry, but I've got beastmen today. So this time is important because we've decided to use 2 units, and it was really important in this position that we did, because if we just use one, well, Caradhrian's probably going to blow through these quite comfortably and he'll overrun in. So we need to prevent that. So again, we can use 2. Positioning is important. No space for him to fit. He kills 1. Bosh. I've now got time to turn. And actually he kills in my turn. Now we're there. Now does he want to come in the front? Maybe he doesn't. All of a sudden I'm a bit better off. I might decide at that point that I want to reform actually out of a horde, and I might want to reform into more of a bus formation. Let's save ourselves some time and use these guys here, but let's pretend these are Bestigor. So I might decide to form into a shape like this, which is going to keep me steadfast for much longer, for example. There's options now. there's options. So we're going to just cover that one more brief time. We've got an exposed flank, and we're going to use 2 units to block it. We're going to run them in because they're skirmishers and they can reform. And that's really crucial, and it's particularly good if the monster does cause terror. If you don't, if you've got units that are immune, psych for that, or ones with decent leadership that will bump it off. So I'm afraid that really is it. In that scenario, the other option, of course, just to touch on an earlier point, because Max is about to bring the camera up, so I'll mess him up, is of course we could double flee. I'll flee, all right. Or I'll redirect. I'll flee again. Now he's out in no man's land. He's got none of the victory points this time, and I can reform in my turn. And now he's got to make difficult decisions himself about what he wants to do. He might decide he wants to jump onto a flank again. Well, I can reform again. So, you know, there might be other things around. There might be another unit, say, here. And if he doesn't want to mix it, I mean, I don't think that's enough, personally, but if he doesn't want to mix it now, he might decide to fly him out of the way to say here, well, you know what, I'll charge. Bang. Then I'll kill these guys. And I'll reform to face you again, Mr. Cradrian. So, the crucial element with all of this was that we had 2 units. So if we can't, and if we are exposed like that, a pair of units, both of which that can either flee or take a charge on an overrun, like we talked about, is going to be the way forward. And that's it, really. So I'm going to take a bit of a recap. I'd love to have given you a real suite of eclectic and really clever tactics, but fundamentally it's just really, really hard to stop flyers doing what they do best, which is getting into really punchy positions and doing us big damage. But we'll recap. Remember to not leave space for the flyers to land if they're going to charge. If they're a wizardy type flyer or someone that wants to cast spells, we can have a quick look at that as well. It covers the same trick. You don't leave them the space that they like the idea of. So you take Thalandor here. We've just lost Karadas' base. If we were looking to defend against him, well, we'd want to make sure there was no space for him to land behind us. And we can do that the same sort of way. Get against this building if we were deploying perfectly, if you like. Hold back his space to land behind us. And then like this to defend our flank. And again, he's in the same problem. He's got no place that he can really get to. Sorry, this should be level. No place that he can get to, so that he can't. He can try here, but he's going to get counter charged. He doesn't want that. He's going to have to back off if he comes in to cast spells now. He'll get countered. He can't get in and over. So again, we can pull back. It's all about our tape measure, looking at distances. Yeah, no, look, he's on their head. No good. Can't get over that. There's nowhere he's going to get here that he can't be seen by this unit here. That's what this unit we're here for. He's in real trouble again, but it's all the same. We don't allow him to have the space. Terrain, these guys, this counter punch. It's all the same. So even if it's a wizard, you can do the same tricks. So remember, don't allow them to have the space to land, whether that's because they want to charge or whether that's because they want to cast spells. Use the terrain if you've got it. Use the terrain if you've got it. It's amazing stuff. Someone like Thalandor, if he was trying to charge and I was on the other side of this building, he probably couldn't even see me because this one's really big. So just don't allow them to have line of sight or space. That's as good as you can do. Now, as I showed you, by stacking your own units, you can do that almost all the time. By using the terrain, you'll be able to do that sometimes. Don't forget that if you get pulled out into a dangerous position, try to use 2 units to fill gaps. Again, not allowing the space for the charges over, and so that you can either double flee or you can take an overrun and get yourself back in to a much more favourable position. And that's it, guys. So we had it right from the beginning. Good target priority, double flee, and don't let them have the space they want. That's as good as it gets for fighting enemy flyers. Hopefully that will give you something that you didn't see before or hadn't considered, and it will give you a real edge at taking down those big, scary flying targets that are causing you some problems. Make sure you let us know in the comments section below, or drop us an email, or send us a message on any of our social media platforms. Thanks for joining me on 20 Nil Tactics. Head back to the Night of the Realm Mustering Ground, where you can check out all of our other exclusive content. Remember to tag your friends and like, subscribe and share. then head over to triplecrownwargaming.com and become a Knight of the Realm today.
What are you doing, mate?
You alright?
You're in for Warhammer!